This week, someone you should know shares her love for history with South Dakotans and beyond. Meet Lori Kent.
But it's hard to find out the families that were running this because
Passionate about history, Lori Kent created a podcast to share her love of discovering the past with thousands of listeners.
I always liked American Girl dolls, which is definitely a generational thing, but that definitely got me interested in little pieces of history. And as I got older, I actually lived next to a historical marker that I never visited. So once I moved away and the pandemic started happening, I needed a hobby that was outside and that I could do by myself. And so I started to go around to historical markers and read them and then research them.
Lori came up with the Local Lou podcast name from a nickname her family gave her, and her father created her theme song.
I felt like podcasting for me was a way to put myself out there without putting myself out there. And it has an international, oddly enough, you guys would be surprised. I have several people in England that are not only listening, but they're interacting with me on social media about it, and they have questions.
She can access everyone and anyone with her podcast, bringing history digitally to life.
I just think that Lori's really filling a gap that maybe the museum and the Historical Society haven't been able to do, of kind of just digitally bringing a lot of this information to a much wider audience than it's been brought to before.
She manages her podcast outside of her 9-to-5 job, filling her free time with researching and sharing historical stories.
It's been wild. I thought for sure once I started uploading that I would get probably 7 to 12 listeners because I have about that many people in my family. And so once it started being dozens of people the day I uploaded it, I was confused. I was excited, and it made me feel like, let's keep doing this.
She finds her information through a myriad of ways, some unexpected.
I started kind of another hobby of trying to find and thrift local books, local history books. And so Last Stop CD Shop and estate sales and thrift stores, trying to find these things. And through that, I found a network of people that are interested in helping me.
She did a lot of work in cemeteries and brought a lot of information about the region to light, and so it was a really good primer as far as somebody from outside who knows nothing about South Dakota, nothing about the Sioux Falls area, to sort of bring you up to speed on what was going on here historically. It's really interesting.
She hopes to create new historical markers for people who have been left out of history and bring them to light.
Sioux Falls has a ton of history that I don't know. And so to get out there and start to learn it and look into it, and maybe if my goal is hopefully at some point to be able to highlight more of her story and figure out more women who contributed to the Sioux Falls that we love today.
The historical markers kind of tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you need to know that too, and that's okay, it's part of our history.
Often she receives requests for specific places, people, and events.
I would like to be able to devote a little bit more of my time on the weekends to it, to get more episodes out, just because I know people want them. I have a pretty long list of things people have asked for. We have over 250 historical markers, but they started with this. A Sioux Falls history podcast doesn't necessarily have to stay in Sioux Falls, and I don't think that you have to live here to appreciate our history. And I think a lot of people that live here might not be aware of our history, and we're still writing our history now. Have a great and wonderful day, and see you next time on the Local Lou podcast.
And you can find the Local Lou podcast on Spotify and Apple. As always, if there is someone you think we should all know, please email a nomination to news@dakotanewsnow.com. Well, stay with us. Top stories next.